So, good evening, students, to all of you. Ishwarya, Tulsi, Jyoti. Students, we'll start on this topic on valuation. I mean, a very important topic, students, as you all are aware of it. And the PDF which I have shared with all of you consists of your practice material question plus the RTP, MTP, past paper question. Kavita. This is something which is very comprehensively targeted. Now, students, I'll tell you one important particular point now. Just pay attention. As far as your examinations are concerned, yes, you may find one independent question based on valuation. Okay. But very recently we have seen the trend wherein apart from valuations, they will also will involve some other topics adjustment as well. Like for example, exemption is very quite popular. Also, the fact on the RCM part, something to do with also the whether it is not a supply at first place. So there will be a lot of mixing of the question that they are going to do as far as this topic is concerned. And one thing I'm now going to tell you is that this topic henceforth will become the base for all our, like for example, the next topic, like the time of supply. For that matter, even the topic on place of supply or RCM or exemption, you will now find that I have selected the questions routes here, which the PDF which I have given it to you. Now, but at the same time, I have eliminated some questions which I have kept it for the other topics. Because in those topics, 50% I find the entry of valuation, 50% I find the entry of exemption, RCM, and the other times of supply, place of supply, like that. Audio is slow. Other students confirm. All of you. Please confirm more students about the audio and all. Jyoti is saying that it is a bit low. Tulsi says audio is fine. I mean, Jyoti, just check at your end once. There could like volume button. Other students are saying it is all good. Sure. Perfect. So students, what I was telling to all of you is that so 50% the question would be of valuation 50% of the respective topic. So that is the reason why I've kept those questions on the other topics. So when I was doing all the selections and all. So now henceforth one thing is settled that this topic would become the base for all the practical questions students that we are going to do in all the remaining topics as far as your GST is concerned. If this is going to become the base students, it is also equally important then the competition students would be a bit tougher. You yourself will come to know when we will proceed in this topic now that when you see your solution now, those who have got their answer sheet from the ICI, just do go through once your answer sheet. In just a second. Students, what I was saying was that Yeah. So those who would have got their answer sheet, just go through your marks. In the valuation topic itself, I'm telling you, your final answer is right, but the full marks is not allocated. Your final answer is right, but the full mark is not allocated. Did you realize that? Just do check to all the students I'm asking, those who have got their answer sheet. Please do check once. And just check whether you're getting the full marks, even though the adjustments are right. And the reason is two reasons. Number one, here in this particular chapter, students, you will have to write section, subsection, even the clause if it is possible. That is point number one. Point number two, your reasons that you're going to give for any adjustment that you do should be the same reason which the examiner will have in their answer sheet, in their evaluation sheet. It is very easy to give a logical answer, but that logical answer will not give you marks. What will ultimately will give you the marks would be the reasons that you're going to give on that adjustment that you do to tally with that statement which is there with the examiner in his evaluation sheet. You would also know, students, that there are only one or two sentences that you can do as far as the reasons are concerned. You cannot write commentary in this, isn't it? One, two sentence for why you have done add or less. That is it. That one, two sentence should tally with that one, two sentence of that particular examiner's. This is what is the biggest challenge. This is what is the biggest challenge. Why students don't score marks even though their final answer is right. And I invite again to all the students, all the students who have got their answer sheet, do check in the topic on valuation what is the marks that has been given to them by the examiner. Even if the adjustments are right, how much marks that they have scored. Please do check once. And on that is what primary students would be the basis of our commitment. I told you, students, every topic has a different particular way of dealing with it. This topic is this way. I told you the theme also. In the last composition thing, we prepared the statement and all. That is how we have committed ourselves. Now, in that, the statement will not be there with the examiner. Examiner will have the big paragraph as their answer. You will write in the statement form the way I have told you to prepare it. That is what is going to give the mark. Full marks. In this topic, what the examiner will have, you should also have in your answer. That is what is going to give you the marks. Are you getting this particular pointer? Indeed, actually. All the students, did you all got this one? Every one of you. Just I forgot. Just a second. So I hope that all of you are now clear with this one, friends. Every one of you. Gopal. So this is what would be the basis of our commitment so far as this topic is concerned. Okay. So this every topic, friends, I'm telling you, the theme is different. And you yourself will appreciate there cannot be a one formula approach to all the chapters in IDT. Every chapter demands a different approach in terms of getting the concepts right in terms of writing it the way it is going to fetch you the full mark. That is the twin strategy that we are all evolving in this context. Let's begin with this topic then, students. Now, students, again, the notes that you're going to prepare. Now, how I'm going to divide it today, I will put part 1 of valuation. In 2 parts, we are going to finish valuation in 2 parts. Today, part 1. Tomorrow, Q&A of part 1, including some valuation rules. Then, day after tomorrow, part 2, and after that, Q&A. I think Q&A would also get over with that only. Let's see. So it's a small topic. Hardly will take me 2-3 lectures. Or maybe if I do more practice, 4 class. That's it. After that, time of supply, place of supply. Small topics. The last is exemption, reverse charge, and exemption, reverse charge, etc. Okay, so this is what it is. So students, what you will do when you make now notes, this notes is different notes. This notes is okay. Conceptual notes is fine. Many of you may be also aware of the concept. That is okay. But what you will write, how much you will write, and what you will write for each adjustment, this note is all about. For each adjustment. And then when I take the question and answers with all of you, in that question and answer also, we will commit ourselves as to what have to be written so as to get the marks. With that, students, let's start with this one then. So today I'm starting with part 1 of the evaluation topic, and then tomorrow Q&A of part 1. Then third class of valuation would be part 2 of valuation. I think third class should be over, but let's see. If I stretch third class, I think in third class itself I should be finished with the valuation topic. Okay. Let's start with it. Let's make the notes properly, students. Very carefully. These notes are not the notes for revising, but these notes are also notes for what you're going to write in that adjustment part. Let's start with the students then. So, valuation, students, part 1. Now, in this part 1, students, the sections which are involved, students, over here. Now, please do one thing, students. If you are making the notes, make it again the same way, horizontal. If you're making the notes, you would require a good width. Please make it horizontally so as to cover up maximum area. So students, over here, if you see valuation which is there in part number 1, all we know, students, in this there are 3 sections which are being there in this part 1 valuation: 15.1, 15.2, and 15.3. This 3 sections goes hand in hand. 3 sections together becomes the valuation in maximum type of questions that you will be getting in your examination. Maximum type of question. These 3 types. These 3 will always go together. 15.1, 15.2, and 15.3. Then there is 15.4. Now the moment there is a 15.4 angle, it will take you to the valuation rule. Moment there is 15.4 angle, it will take you to the valuation rule. So therefore that becomes my second part, which I'll do after in the third class of valuation. So right now our focus is on this 3 section, and on that, what are the question and answers which are being associated with this. The first section is the base section, which it's talking about the value, students. In this case, the value, students, would be what? The base section talks about the value to be the transaction value. So therefore, students, whenever you will talk about the, if supposingly your answer comes under 15.1, you will always say that the accessible value of the supply shall be the transaction value under section 15.1. Use this term, the accessible value for this particular supply, which is given to you in the question, is the transaction value under 15.1, provided some conditions has to be satisfied. What are the conditions? We'll see that. What are the conditions? We'll see that. So the value would be the transaction value, students. That is point number 1. Now the value in this particular context, the transaction value, students. What is transaction value? In this context, you may be aware of it. The price, transaction is nothing but the price which is paid or payable Price which is paid or payable for supply. The price which is paid or payable for supply. Is that clear to all of you? Now you will be taking the valuation under 15.1. Be careful, friends. You will be taking the valuation under 15.1 provided the three conditions are also satisfied. And the three conditions, students, are in this particular case the supplier and the supplier and the recipient, they should not be related person. The supplier and the recipient, students, should not be related person. That is first condition. The second condition, students, in this particular case is that the consideration that is to be given, that consideration, students, should be in monetary form. It should be a monetary consideration, students. That is point number 2. And the third particular point, students, which is, what is the third particular point in this particular context? That is, the price should be the sole consideration. So there are three particular points which has been there. Price is the sole consideration. The price is the sole consideration. Is that point clear to all of you? Three conditions. Say the supplier and the recipient are not related person. Consideration is in money form. Third is the price is the sole consideration. So this three is the criteria for the purpose of adopting the transaction value as the assessable value. Adopting the transaction value as the assessable value. Okay, perfect. So students, 15.2 talks about what are the cases of inclusion. Under what circumstances there would be some items that would be included in the assessable value which you are making in 15.1. What are the items and what are the circumstances in which these items will be included? Okay, so that is 15.2, and 15.3 is all about the exclusion. What is 15.3? 15.3 is all about the exclusion. So what is included and what is excluded is what now we need to touch upon. So let's go one by one. I touch upon first the inclusion part, which is covered to you in section 15.2. And students, over here, I will say that there are total 5 clauses: 15A, 15B, 15C, D, and E. All these 5 items, students, you need to know clause wise. Because if you are not doing it, somebody else is doing it for sure. And therefore, you should not be out of the competition. So this is one of the most important, and you will find in the valuation topic 15.2 definitely has a relevance in your question in the exam. Now what happens with just a very quick conceptual part, many of you are aware of it, but still just allow me a minute to introduce the conceptual part of 15.2. Students, as you may be aware of the fact that there are two types of pricing systems which are there in the country. Two types of pricing system which is there in the country. One is known as the consolidated pricing system, and the second one, students, is known as the split up pricing system. What it is known as? One is known as the consolidated pricing system, and another is a split up pricing system. Quick example, like a coaching class, students, if I just tell you in this context, coaching class. So say for example the fee is 10,000 rupees for a subject. Okay, so therefore this 10,000 which has been charged is a consolidated pricing system. 1,000 rupees which has been charged as a fees is nothing but a consolidated pricing system. Okay, but supposingly I split the price and say the tuition fees for my lecture is 7,000 rupees, books and periodicals is 3,000 rupees. What I'm doing, I'm now showing separately in my invoice that 3,000 and distinguishing that 3,000 with 7,000. That 7,000 is for tuition, 3,000 is for this books and other notes, materials. For that, I'm charging you 3,000. So if that is a split up which I'm making in this case, therefore the question that arises to all of you is, then how the valuation would be done? This context, how the valuation would be done? In this case, you will say, shall I take in the split up pricing only 7,000 or shall I go with combination 3 plus 7 has to be the combination 3. Why is it so? That is what you're going to learn in 15.2. Why we have to add 3. If you do a split up, then in that situation, why that 3000 will be added to 7 will be known to you in this 15.2. And 15.3 is a discount which we will be discussing it separate. Is that clear to all of you, students? So inclusion in the transaction value. So inclusion where? In the transaction value. So what has to be included, students? Let's take across one by one. So 15.3 students we will take in the next page. Just try to focus now on 15.2 students in this case. So as I told you, there are 5 clauses. The first one, students, happens to be careful over here. This is something which I have already told you earlier, if you remember. I've already told you, students, while we are doing supply topic. Duties, taxes, levied under any law for the time being in force. Time being in force other than what? GST composition says if charged separately. If charged separately. Okay. GST or composition says if it is charged separately. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. So obviously a GST and any GST, SGST, IGST or CGST that will not be a part of your transaction value. This other than that, the compensation cess, the concept which we introduced in the earlier class, also will not be included. But apart from that, all the other taxes, students will be part of your transaction value. Didn't I told you, students, when we were discussing about the cascading effect? We were discussing about what? The cascading effect. At that particular point of time, I have told you about the excise duty getting included in respect of the tobacco product, cigarettes and all. And then the assessable value for the purpose of GST, that assessable value was charge on excise duty, the price which is inclusive of excise duty. So I told you that yes, in some of the demerit goods, there is still cascading effect that is taking place. This was one of the example which I gave it to you. Although at that point of time, I didn't give you the citation. Why I am adding excise duty? This is a citation now. So therefore, students, in this context, the example which primarily I will just sharing with you herein. First one, tobacco product. So the citation, students, which you will say about this particular part is now have to be very specific. That time, through an example I just told you at my initial lecture, like basic selling price is 1 lakh. Excise duty is at 10% in this context. Now you take subtotal of 1 lakh, 10,000. Now GST would be at the rate of 10%. 10% on what? This. This is your transaction. This is your TV. And this 10,000 is added by virtue of 15.2a. Is that point clear to all of you? Everyone. Right, students? So the second particular part you see in this particular context is about this TCS. This is a very popular question and it comes in the examination and it is coming in your statement. In one of the item, they will say you that TCS has been collected at this particular rate on this value. This is the amount. Therefore, the question to all of you is that while you calculate your transaction value or the assessable value, whether the TCS will that be included or not. On that, there is CBIC circular for deciding if TCS has included or not. Answer is it will not be included. Every one of you are aware. Jyoti, isn't it? What is the reason why it should not be included? Therefore, they should see you in your answer. Be careful. At least what are the reasons which are coming from the circulars? The language of the circular has to be put up. If you don't put up the language of the circular and instead you are in your own particular monologue of logical reason, you don't get marks. 15(2)(a) is a citation. It is not the case. They have given the CBIC in the circular has said that TCS not to be included. Not to be included because it is only an interim levy. This is what they should see in your answer. It is only an interim levy. It is not a final levy at all in this context. It is only an interim levy, students, and not a final levy. And that is the reason why TCS students will not be included. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Every one of you. That exactly the point. So this is how the things has to be looked upon. Well, we'll now proceed further, students. Interim levy means it is not the final levy is income tax. This you get the credit, na? TDS and TCS. TDS and TCS are levy of income tax, which is charged at the time of transaction, whereas a income tax as a levy is on the total income. It is nothing but a total income. So therefore, these are the interim levies. That is the levy which is for the time being. Probably this is something. A final levy will happen in the assessment year, and that is the reason why all these things, that the credit that you get it primarily in this particular context, but that is not a levy by itself. The charge is not of TCS, the charge is of the GST. TCS is just a particular collection that you do for the purpose of securing your revenue. That is it. Or identifying the transaction. But the levy under the law is not of TCS. The levy under the law is of the GST. The rate is of the GST. TCS rate is just for the purpose of getting the trail of the transaction. That is the kind of the nature of the tax in the form of TDS and TCS. So the levy is of the income tax, the levy is of the GST. That is what the levy is all about at the respective rates. TDS and TCS, as the name itself specify, it's undertaken for the purpose of securing what? The trail of the transaction. And that is the reason why this by itself is what? It's not a end by itself. TCS or TDS is not an end by itself. It is a means to the end. The end is GST. The end is income tax. These are just a means to that end. Hence, it is known as interim levy. But don't write means to the end in your answer, even though it suits to our discussion. What they need to see in your answer is interim levy. That is point number A. Coming to this point number B, the third party transaction. Third party payment. What is third party payment? Means the recipient is making the payment to a third party. So if a recipient of the supply, if he makes a payment to a third party, whether that payment made by the recipient to the third party, will it be included in the transaction value of supply? Will it be included in the transaction value of supply? That will depend upon, again, what? The test. What is a test? 15(2)(b) test. So if a recipient makes a third party payment, whether that be included in the transaction value will depend upon 15(2)(b) test. What test? Let's have a reference. So right here, in any payment levied, any payment incurred by the recipient will be added if what? This is the game. If the supplier, student, if the supplier was this is what has to be seen. Now in the Q&A, students, that we will do tomorrow, I'll show you two cases. Case number one, where the supplier was liable to pay and the expenditure was incurred by whom? By this particular recipient. So in that case, we are going to add it. But in the other example, the supplier was not at all liable to pay, but still the recipient has incurred the amount. In that particular case, the recipient incurring the amount when the supplier was not liable to pay, in such case, that amount will not be a part of the transaction value. Is that point clear to all of you? Everyone? That's exactly the point, students. Now, point number C is about what, students? Incidental expenses. Incidental expenses charge by the supplier. This is important. At the time of supply. Now, students, there is already a decided list. Now, these are decided lists based on the Supreme Court judgment, means established judgment, Supreme Court, and that judgment was in the context of service tax law, VAT laws, excise duty law. So this is a settled position that if these are the expenditure which are charged by the supplier at the time of supply, then these charges will always be included. In fact, the section itself says so. Be careful. So on that, you don't have to write any reason. You can straight away give the citation to be added as per 15(2)(c). That is it. To be added as per 15(2)(c). So which are the items for which it is a established principle that these items, if it is charged by the supplier at the time of supply, it has to be added. What are the item list? You should be aware of it. Example is known, Jyoti, but it is better that you know everything. Packing charges, students. Commission. So this list are from the settled one. Royalty, insurance, Dharmada charges, Abatement charges, students. Abatement charges. Thereafter, students, pre-delivery inspection, PDI. What is the full form of PDI? Pre-delivery inspection and erection and installation charges. Erection and installation charges. So parking charges, commission, royalty, insurance, dharmada, abatement charges, PDI charges. So these are the items which, if it is charged, these are the items, students, which if it charge, you will simply say to be added under 15(2)(c). To be added under 15(2)(c). But other than this, any other items, if you find that it is charged by the supplier, then check out whether it is charged at the time of supply. Be careful of students in this case. Students, tomorrow when I'll take you to the Q&A, students, be careful. Tomorrow when I take you to the Q&A, students, in that you will come to know one adjustment is written there. Students, one adjustment is written there. And the adjustment is, there is the, I'll tell you what is the question. The question is that there is a supply of letting out of the letting out of the commercial property. There is a supply of letting out of the commercial property. Now, the rent, therefore, is a consideration. Okay. Now, municipal tax of that property is borne by the supplier. Is borne by the supplier. The question, therefore, to all of you is whether that municipal tax, which is borne by the supplier, will it form part of the transaction value or not? The municipal tax, which is borne by the supplier, students, will it form part of the transaction value or not? That is the question. Jyoti. What is your take, students? This is the point, students. Be careful. Be careful, students. First of all, tell me, students, in this case, is it coming in 15(2)(a)? No. Is it coming in 15(2)(3)? Recipient bearing it? No. Is it coming in 15(2)(c)? Answer is no, because this expenses should be charged by the supplier, and that is the reason why deliberately I didn't highlighted this word. Deliberately I didn't highlighted this word. What is that word? Charged by the supplier. So tell me over here, the rent is charged, but the municipal tax is borne by the supplier. And the fact that you are borning the municipal tax, you are not charging the municipal tax. Therefore what? Therefore, it will not be a part of the transaction value. Is that particular point clear to all of you? So therefore, now what you can do, students, is this. Please write over here in this context. Any other charges? Any other charges? So any other charges? Any other expenses will be added will be added to the transaction value only if it is charged by the supplier at time of supply. If it is charged by the supplier at the time of supply. Just write an example. Therefore, municipal taxes, if borne by the supplier and not charged, then it shall not be added to the. Is that point clear to all of you? Everyone. Jyoti. Let's proceed further. Aishwarya, Naveen. So with that reference, the last two entries in this context. Point number D. Friends, point number D is about the subsidy. Point number D is subsidy. Now be careful over here. Two types of subsidy, students, as you all are aware. Now the beauty, I'll tell you one thing, students. I can tell you one more thing. Students, there are many charts which are also available in the market on this chapter on valuations. I can tell you and I can warn you that it doesn't help because you yourself are aware of it now. What you are aware? That if you don't appreciate this word charge and you don't know what is the example that is discussed at that stage, and if you have not written it, it will not register to your mind. So that is the reason why, students, I'm telling you the way the IDT has been learned, revised by the students. Telling you, students, you revise 10 more times the way you have done it in the past. You'll get the same marks. Or if you want to increase number of times, take 20 more times. Revise 20 more times, get the same mark. It is the approach that you have to change, students. If you really want to shoot your scoring and make a very significant difference to your marks and all, your approach has to change. Otherwise, just tell me composition scheme just before that, or maybe a supply topic. You would have revised 30 times the way you have done it. Do you think that you would have got the marks from me anyway? In this context, revise anytime, n number. I'm telling you, revise n number of times. The way you have done it earlier, you get the same marks. So in final CA, students, now you just be very clear on this one. Huh? You have only 5 papers. At final CA, students, you have got only 5 papers now. I'm not taking the 6th paper at all. At 5 papers, students, ICI definitely will not show leniency. You need to raise your level. Earlier it was 8 papers and the IDT used to come last. ICI was okay, she was showing some mercy. Mercy was being shown. But now we are having only 5. This case, forget mercy now. You cannot get away with having the final answer right, but a very scrappy adjustment or presentation or reason which doesn't matches to the reason of the ICI, then sorry, you will not be scoring the marks. You might just sail through, and that will also depend upon what you marks that you have it in other subjects also. But if you really want to score marks, Pranvi, you need to be now with that particular, not only the final answer, but also equally important is the presentation. Very important. And that is one thing which we are emphasizing upon big time. So now for subsidy, if you see over here, if the subsidy is from the government, you all are aware, in this case, never added. Never added. And if it is from any other person, students, if it is from whom? From any other person, then be careful. It will be added, provided one condition has to be satisfied. To be added if, only if, it is linked with the price. Linked with what? Linked with the price. Only then it is going to be added. Is that point clear to all of you? Everyone? To be added only if it is linked with the price. That is how it would be considered. Remember this discussion I already had earlier with you. Remember when we're doing that concept of consideration in the topic of supply 7.1a, at that point of time when we were discussing about consideration, this thing came that stage. I was giving you this example of this COVID vaccination. 1,000 rupees. Government said no, 700 subsidy we are giving you. 700 subsidy we are giving you. If 700 subsidy is given by government, the price now is 300. And that is what is the price at which it is sold in the market. So that 700 subsidy given by the government will that has to be added? No, it will not be added. It will not be added. It will not be added. Subsidy given by the government. But if Tata Memorial, if you remember, Tata Memorial said that, look, COVID vaccination company, I will give you 100 rupees more subsidy. You make the price to 200 rupees. You make the price to 200 rupees. So now what happens? Now this vaccination is being sold in the market at 200 rupees. So now there are two subsidy, one by Tata Memorial 100, another by government 700. So what will be added would be 100. So 200 is the price at which it is sold plus 100. So assessable value would be 300. That 700 subsidy given by the government will not be added. So now that this concept I already have discussed with you when I was teaching you supply under 7.1a. Now I'm just giving you the citation. What is the citation? 15.2d. The citation is 15.2d. Is that point clear to all of you? Yes, sure. All of you are clear with this, students? Everyone. Did you all took the note, students? The last point, students, is, please write the last one. 15.2e. So the last one, 15.2e. So 15.2e, students, please take a note of it. Interest, late fees, comma, penalty for delay in payment of consideration. Interest, late fee, penalty for delay in payment of consideration. That is 15.2e now. Okay. So now, students, over here, be careful. What has to be added? Just be careful. Now pay attention, students, for 2 minutes. It's very important discussion now that is going to take place. All of you. Students, if you remember, now this interest, if you see the language, what they've used, interest, late fee, penalty for delay in payment of consideration. So therefore, there is a supply for which a consideration is charged. There is a supply for which a consideration is charged. And there is a delay in payment of that consideration, and there is a delay in payment of that consideration, because of which the interest, late fee, or penalty has been recovered. The question therefore is the interest, late fee, or penalty a consideration for any independent supply, or it is linked to the original supply? What is the original supply? The supply of goods or service for which the consideration was charged, and there is a delay in payment of the consideration, for which the consequence is, what is the consequence? Interest, late fee, penalty. So is this interest, late fee, penalty a consideration for any independent supply, or it is linked to the original supply? Linked to the original supply, and therefore this interest, late fee, or penalty would be added to the transaction value. Transaction value of what? Transaction value of that particular original supply. It will be added to the transaction value of that original supply of goods or service, as the case may be. This is what you have to always find out. So what is added is this interest is not a consideration for any independent supply, but it is linked to the original supply, and hence to be added to the original supply. Hence to be added to the transaction value of the original supply. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Now please distinguish this with other example. Other example is what, students? The other example which you all are aware is when the service is by way of extending deposit, loans, and advances. The services is by way of extending deposit, loans, and advances in so far as the consideration is in interest. In so far as the consideration charges in interest. Now you tell me whether this interest which now you are charging, is it an consideration for an independent supply? In this example, the interest that you are charging, is it a consideration for an independent supply? Please answer this question. Is it a consideration for an independent supply? The answer is yes. What is it, independent supply? The supply of deposit, loans, and advance. This is a supply for which the interest is charged. So this is an independent supply for which the consideration is in the form of interest. This interest, be careful. This interest, which is an independent consideration, this interest will be accessible in 15.1. 15.1 is for what? For independent supply, transaction value. This will be accessible where? Where it will be accessible? This interest arising out of an independent supply of extending deposit, loans, and advance. Where it will go? It will go in 15.1. And therefore the value would be in 15.1, which is for the independent supply of extending deposit, loans, and advance. The consideration is in monetary terms. What is monetary consideration? Interest. However, we know that this interest is exempt, but the valuation is 15.1, though the interest is exempt. Valuation is where? 15.1, though the interest is exempt. Is that clear to all of you? This is how you draw the conclusion. This is how you draw the conclusion, students. I hope that all of you are clear with this one now. Every one of you. That's exactly the point. So therefore, students, please write this particular note. Write the note, students, all of you. Whether interest is charged towards, below this, right? Whether the interest is charged towards, on the left hand side. Whether the interest is charged towards, now on the left hand side. What is on the left hand side? Delay in payment of consideration of supply of goods or service. Whether the interest is charged towards, what is there in the left hand side? Delay in payment of the consideration of supply of goods or service. And what is on the right hand side? In between, right? Or extending deposit, loans, and advance. Extending deposit, loans, and advance. Now just focus only on the left hand side. What is there in the left hand side, students? Answer that you are writing. Interest charge is not a consideration for an independent supply. Interest charge is not a consideration for an independent supply, and hence what? And hence shall be added. Hence shall be added under section 15.2. And hence shall be added under 15. And hence shall be added under 52, students. And what is there on the right hand side, students? On the right hand side, it is interest charge is a consideration for an independent supply. Interest charge is a consideration for an independent supply and hence shall not be added but would be assessed separately. Interest is a consideration for an independent supply. For DLA, I'm talking about it, deposit, loans, and advances. Interest charge is the consideration for an independent supply and hence shall not be added but would be assessed separately. And how it is assessed? Exempt. Exempt, students. All of you are through with this one, students. Now, students, I have told you one point, if you can recall. Remember in the last topic, only when we are doing question and answer, I suppose the last topic on supply or on composition scheme. There was a question that had asked, prepare the assessable value for the month of November. And in that question, I got an opportunity to tell you something about interest. See, the interest, students, on the delay payment, you will receive it later on. The interest, students, you will receive it later on, maybe after 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, you will receive that time. And now you just said what? Sir, it has to be linked with what? Linked with the, you have to add to the transaction value. The transaction value or the supply happened, students, the transaction value or the supply happened in the month of January. Interest was received in the month of November. So what I'm going to do? Because this interest had to be added to the transaction value for a supply which happened in January, should it mean that I will have, should it mean, student, that I will have what? The interest and everything would be added later on. Because then if you see, sir, this interest that you are getting it for delay in payment of consideration, please add, sir, to that transaction value, which you did for a supply in January. You know what is the consequence? Consequence also I told you. It means that it is a value of January. This interest is the value of January. And if it is the value of January month, the GST would be enhanced because the value would be enhanced of January month. But I have paid the GST liability without taking into account the interest because I didn't knew that he is going to delay in the payment, which he did later on. So I paid my GST based on whatever it was there at that point of time. And now you are telling me that because this interest on delay is not an original consideration, it is not an independent, it is not an independent consideration, but it is linked with the original supply. So therefore, this amount would be added to the transaction value of a supply which happened in January. So January what you paid was a short payment and therefore now you have to pay the differential amount and that differential amount will have to be paid along with interest. That differential amount will be paid along with interest. Somebody can argue that way. So for that I told you there is a time of supply. And what is the time of supply? It says what? For the interest on the delay payment is concerned, the time of supply would be when it is received. That is special point number one. So two special point students are there. Please write the two special points. First special point students, generally interest is inclusive of GST. Generally interest is inclusive of GST. We will have to make the assumption in the question suitably. I'll let you know once the question gets started that time. Generally interest is inclusive of GST. And what is the second special point? By the way, this special point you're writing on what? On which interest? Interest which is to be added to the transaction value. Don't write this two special point for that exemption part. This interest has to be written for that where it is to be added to the transaction value. So generally interest is inclusive of GST and time of supply is month in which it is actually received. Month in which it is actually received. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Month in which it is actually received. Fine, students. Students, let me give you one more example. And this is an example which you just be very careful about it. Huh? On the same 2 points. Be careful, students. Supposingly you are going to a showroom and you are buying an Apple laptop. Apple company's laptop you are buying. The shopkeeper says that the amount would be 2.5 lakhs. The shopkeeper says the amount is 2.5 lakhs. Now, one is, I'll give you two options. Option number one, the shopkeeper will say that, okay, I'll give you EMI facility. You pay me this in 24 EMI. So what he is doing is that he is giving you an EMI facility which wherein you can pay 2.5 lakhs in 24 installments. So that is one. So obviously now he will charge you say 2.8 lakhs, not 2.5 lakhs, but 2.8 lakhs or 3 lakhs. That extra 50,000 that is charging you, that is nothing but the interest. That is nothing but the interest, students. So your transaction value would be 2.5 lakhs or 3 lakhs? 3 lakhs. Your transaction value would be how much? 3 lakhs. That interest amount on that delay in payment of the consideration, that will be added to your transaction value. So your amount will become 3 lakhs. That is example number one. So transaction value would be how much? 3 lakhs. Now I give you example number two. Supposingly that general store, that laptop store, that electronic store, they don't give you such installment facility. But what they do is this, that they tell you this, that look boss, I want my 2.5 lakhs straight away. But I will help you to finance this laptop. So what this electronic store or electronic shop says that we have a tie-up with HDFC Bank. The HDFC person also sits in our shop. Go and meet him. So what HDFC person do? You will find that these people, finance company, are there with this the person, supplier of the dealer of the bike, cars, and all. They are all attached to that showroom. And what they will do? They will say that okay, we just want your couple of papers. Immediately, we will just sanction the loan. So what happens now? The HDFC will make immediate payment, entire payment to this shopkeeper. And then there is an agreement between whom? Between HDFC and yourself. HDFC and yourself. So you and HDFC are into an agreement. And you will have to make the payment of that 2.5 lakhs to HDFC along with interest. You will have to make the payment of 2.5 lakhs to HDFC along with interest. That interest now that you are charging. So your amount again here is 3 lakhs. In totality, you have paid to HDFC 3 lakh rupees. In totality, you have paid to HDFC 3 lakh rupees. In this case, out of which 50,000 extra that you have paid was towards interest. 2.5 lakhs is what you have taken to pay to the shopkeeper, and that 50,000 extra was an interest. So this 50,000 extra that you have paid to HDFC company, what you will say about it? Is this a consideration for an independent supply, or it will be added to the value of laptop? What it will be done? This consideration, is it a consideration of an independent supply? Indeed! Now it is a financing agreement. HDFC is giving you deposit, loans, and advance, for which that 50,000 extra which HDFC has charged is nothing but an interest. And hence, this interest amount, students, will be considered as a consideration of an independent supply. And as you can see, it is exempt. Don't add it. You should now know a clear distinction between these two transactions. You should now know a clear distinction between these two transactions. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Every one of you. Now, coming to the third category, students, 15.3. 15.3 students, I told you what? 15.3 students is about deduction. Did I told you students? 15.3 is about what? Is about deduction. That is what 15.3 is all about. Now, just students, obviously you will also be running out of the space. Put an asterisk mark. You people also would be running out of the space, na? So do put an asterisk mark. And write, this exclusion or deduction is towards discount. This particular exclusion is towards what? Towards discount. So 15.3 talks about what? Deducting or excluding the discount. Now be careful, students. Every question on valuation, you will find something about discount. Every question. And therefore, we cannot go anything. We can't write anything other than a specific statement which the ICI examiner will have with him. You only have to write that. Don't travel here and there, students, for this particular adjustment. Standard statements are there. You just have to write standard statement. You cannot write anything else. If you see something else being written, even though your answer is right, gone. He will give you half mark. This is that important. So discount, if you can see, students, I have categorized the discount into two parts. Which are the two parts, students? Pre-supply and post-supply. These are the two discounts that you can see for yourself. So far as pre-supply is concerned, students, so far as pre-supply is concerned, students, what they have said, given before or at the time of supply. What do you mean by pre-supply discount? It means given before or at the time of supply. That is pre-supply. And what is post-supply, students? That we will see, but just write pre-supply first. So pre-supply discount, every one of you are aware that for a pre-supply discount, always deduct. But just be careful on this part. You will always write, it is assumed that the pre-supply discount has been recorded in the invoice issued in respect of such supply. Always. If the question is specific, you don't have to worry. But many times questions are not specific. Many times questions are not specific. They say that discount given at the time of supply. That is it. They will not talk about the invoice. They will not talk about the invoice, students. This is missing. So if this is missing, then what you're going to do? In such particular case, students, you will have to say to them that this discount which has been given at the time of supply, this discount, students, which is given at the time of supply would be reduced provided the same has been recorded in the invoice. Provided it has been recorded in the invoice which has been issued in respect of such supply. Is that point clear to all of you? So they will not give you this, huh? I've seen that 90% of the question, this statement is missing. 90%. But they do tell you that the discount was given at the time of supply. And people say that allow the reduction. Without writing this condition, they move on further. Gone. What do you will say? Allow this reduction under 15.3a. In the bracket only you will write. After that, it is assumed that the discount is recorded in the invoice issued at the time of supply. It is assumed what? In this case, that the discount is recorded in the invoice issued at the time of supply. Is that point clear to everyone? That is 15.3a for you. That is 15.3a for you. Come to 15.3b. Be careful. Post supply. Now, this post supply, every one of you are aware of some of the example like quantity discount. Say, for example, students, I am a buyer and the supplier tells me that look, if you buy 50,000 unit for the entire year, in the entire year, if you buy 50,000 unit, then I will give you 10% discount for all the supply throughout the year. Minimum threshold is 50,000, 50,000 or above. Quantity if you purchase from me for the entire year, I will give you 10% discount on the entire supply. Is this condition known to us at the time of the agreement that I'm going to get a discount? Is it known to us, or it is something which surprise discount at the end given to make me happy? It is known to me. This term for granting the discount or giving the discount is known to me at the time of supply. That is point number one. In this case, this is the first condition, the most important condition. And the second condition, students, is coming at the receiver's level. So first is, students, be careful. Condition for deduction. This is what you have to write. What is the condition, students? It should be established in the terms of the agreement entered at or before time of supply. It should be what? Established in terms of the agreement entered either at or before. So I am aware at the time of supply, the terms is put up, or before the supply, the terms is put up. This is what they're trying to say. I'm just breaking down this way, student, so that you can write the way it is going to be there. Because this is what the ICI in their standard statement, they will have it. You need not write like this, but at least it will help you to write, make the statement. As if this term is established in the agreement which is entered at or before the time of supply. Plus what, students? Plus they are specifically linked with the invoice. Obviously, when I am giving you 10% discount, is that 10% discount, is it to be given only on the last supply or for all the supply? For all the supply. So is it linked with all the invoices for which I'm going to get discount? I'm going to reduce it? Yes. This 10% is linked with all the invoice which I'm going to reduce it. Which I am going to reduce it, students. Is that clear to all of you? So they are specifically linked with the invoice. If that is what is clear to all of you students over here, now comes the next point. ITC attributable. ITC attributable. Now this is for the receiver. See, 50,000 was the amount. Now, after getting 10% discount, it became 45. But it became 45 at the year end. Initially, when the invoice was raised, it was the tax invoice was at 50,000. On the basis of this tax invoice, the buyer or the recipient, he has taken the ITC. Subsequently, when the discount is given year end, then that discount, they will be issuing a credit note of 5,000 each, in assuming that all the transaction value is for 50,000. Every transaction value is also 50,000. Every transaction. So for all the transaction, 5,000 credit note will be given. all the transaction, 5,000 credit note would be given to us in this context. So therefore, what happens now? The the supplier will now issue the credit note to the receiver. The receiver has the document. Which document? Credit note. He has got tax invoice on which 50,000 was mentioned, and on the 50,000 he took the credit ITC. Now he has got another document of 5,000 credit, the credit note. So therefore, now what the receiver has to do? Now he has got the benefit of 5,000. He has got the benefit of 5,000 because he has been issued a credit note. So if he has got the benefit of 5,000, he also needs to reverse the proportionate credit ITC. So ITC to the discount on the basis of ITC attributable to the discount. How much is the discount? In my example, 5,000. On the basis of the document. Which document? On the basis of the document. The discount on the basis of document. What is that discount on the basis of document? Discount on the basis of document, the credit note. Issued by the supplier. So obviously the credit note will be issued by the supplier. Has been reversed. So ITC has been reversed by the recipient. So ITC attributable to the discount on the basis of document issued by the supplier has been reversed by the recipient. Has been reversed by whom? By the recipient. Is that clear to all of you? Every one of you? Students, this is what it is now. We are done with this particular proposition completely. This, students, we have to write like if it is therefore post supply 15.3b is two condition. You can write like this also, condition of deduction. If you don't want to write the sentence, it is still fine. You just need that particular the proper provision should be mentioned because the same statement would be there with him. I'm telling you, students, you write anything else, even though it's logical, he will not give you the mark. So, students, we are done with the first part now. As I told you, students, tomorrow Q&A we are going to do of the first part. Plus, I'm going to introduce some couple of valuation rules also in my tomorrow session, and then we will graduate, students. I think maybe one lecture is what maximum I think would be required for the valuation rules. We will do and we will finish. Okay, see you then, students, tomorrow. Okay, same time. Take care.